With me now is Dmytro Kuleba. He served as Ukraine's Minister of Foreign Affairs from 2020 to 2024. Hello, Mr. Kuleba. Great to have you on the show. Thank you for making the time.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
I wanted to start off on the deployment of the hypersonic ballistic missile and your read on what the significance of it is.
Well, let me take you back 2 weeks ago when Russia fired a barrage of missiles and drones on Ukraine, destroyed many elements of our energy infrastructure, hit our civilian residences. No one was connecting this massive, devastating attack to Putin's response to any kind of escalation, the alleged escalation made by the West. So now the discussion is framed as if Putin has responded with this intercontinental missile in response to the escalatory decision made by the United States in Russia. I want to really question this logic, this line of thinking, because we should not see things through this prism. The only goal of Putin is to make everyone fear him and feel afraid of him. And he's implementing a madman strategy. Like, if you do anything, I'm going to escalate. But the truth is that he does not need any reasons to escalate. And he will continue using weapons he has at his disposal to achieve his goal, crushing Ukraine's statehood and compromising the West.
So if I understand you correctly, it's more that he would have done this anyway, regardless of what Ukraine does to defend itself.
You are a journalist, and you have put it in a much more concise and better way than I did as a diplomat.
So Mr. Kuleba, what then do allies of Ukraine, in particular Western allies, take from that framing, like about how we should be aiding Ukraine? Well,
our partners should continue supporting Ukraine. And I know that capitals are reflecting now of how the election of Mr. Trump as U.S. president will impact the Western strategy towards this conflict. And whatever the outcomes of these review exercises will be, I have no doubts that the only viable strategy of deterring Putin, of stopping him, is to continue providing Ukraine with necessary assistance. And this is where the conclusion which strategists and advisors will eventually reach.
Are you worried, though, that under the new president or the incoming president, the U.S. will be more hesitant to reach that position?
Well, there is a bumpy road ahead of us. We should not look at the picture through rosy glasses, but as I said, I think the problem in this war is that Putin wants to destroy Ukraine, and he is not ready to accept half solution or half achievement or half price. He wants it all. So once decision makers in DC and other capitals realize that Putin is not about drawing another line, putting things on hold and continuing endless negotiations, he's not about that anymore. He wants to win his prize, which is Ukraine, which is the discreditation of the West and exposing its weakness to the whole world. Once they realize that, they will have to return to the strategy of supporting those who are fighting against Putin. But it will take time.
What is the cost of that time, in your view?
Well, unfortunately, Ukraine will have to pay the highest price for this. People will be dying, houses and civilian and infrastructure will be destroyed. We will have losses on the battleground, but we will hold, because Ukraine realizes clearly what is at stake in this war for it. And I want everyone to be absolutely clear about one thing. Ukraine is the nation that wants, more than anyone else in the whole world, for this war to end. But we are not ready to end this war at the expense of our death and the disappearance of our state from the map of the world. So anyone who believes that he can convince, persuade, or pressure Ukraine into accepting unacceptable conditions of ending the war that person is wrong. He does not understand what is at stake for this country in this war.
Would you consider the ceding of any Ukrainian territory to Russia part of what you just laid out is unacceptable?
With all my respect, I kind of got tired of answering this question. Every Western journalist I've been speaking to since the election of Trump asks me again the same question, as if it was written in one place. Guys, we will never reach just peace if we start the conversation with the question what Ukraine is ready to accept. Just peace is possible only if we turn the table and begin asking the question how to stop Putin. What else can we make to stop Putin? The question that you asked, and this is not personal, I'm enjoying the conversation greatly with you, but this is just a pattern. The question you are asking today is exactly the one journalists, experts, and diplomats were asking Ukraine in between 2014 and 2022. And this line, this approach, like, dear Ukrainians, what can you do to appease Putin? What can you do to, what you can concede, what can you concede to make him stop? This is exactly the question that led to the answer that Putin gave to Ukraine and the whole world by launching large-scale invasion. So let's finally refocus and concentrate on how to stop Putin and not on how to learn what Ukraine is ready to concede.
Yeah, and
this is the big issue.
I certainly say this with a lot of respect as well, and it's not personal in any way. I did frame the beginning of the entire conversation around just that for that reason. And I think the reason you keep getting the question is because of, as you pointed out, the election of President Trump, because he has said, I'm going to end this war on day one, and people who are in and around his orbit have talked about Ukraine ceding territory. I understand your pushback on that 100%. I'm just trying to explain why people are asking that of you. I think it's because President Trump has implied that that is something that he would be okay with. And I'm just trying to get a better sense of how Ukraine will navigate that.
Correct me if I'm wrong, because I do not follow every piece of communication coming from President Trump, but I never heard him saying that this is the main scenario or the main kind of pattern that he considers. I hear people from his entourage saying similar things. I hear leaks, or I read leaks from his team about that, but I never heard him saying that.
No, that's what I said. People in his orbit have implied that. So we're trying to like read between the lines, you know? People
in his orbit, including his own son, urged him not to greenlight the vote on the supplemental in the House, in the House of the U.S. Congress. But he gave that green light to Mike Johnson, and Ukraine got the money. So there is, I think, there is Donald Trump, and I would not prejudge of what exactly his thoughts are until he puts them on the table. And there is his entourage. And we've seen since, even during his first tenure in office, that sometimes first what he thinks and what his entourage thinks are different things. And second, his own thoughts may change as the situation evolves in accordance with reality, with the changing reality on the ground. So why should we all lean under the pressure of entourage, under the pressure of leaks, and change the whole kind of debate and shift focus to the conversation of what Ukraine is ready to accept, even if we haven't heard what President Trump himself thinks of that? So let's stay strong. Let's not blink. Let's hold the line. And I think this is the only way to survive and win the battle, both diplomatic and the military one.
I have one final question for you, Mr. Kuleba, and it's actually in the vein of beyond aid and particularly military aid. The last time I spoke to you, there was a very robust discussion going on about additional sanctions that could be levied by the West and additional pressure that could be put on Russia. I've interviewed our foreign affairs minister as well as a number of ministers here about that. Could there be more? Could those sanctions, I would also ask, be better enforced? Like, what is your message to countries like Canada and other Western allies around the sanction regime, and if there is more pressure that could be exerted, in your view, on Russia?
Russian ruble lost its value in the last couple of days as a result of the decisions taken recently by the outgoing Biden administration. Economists see more signs of crisis in the Russian economy, which proves once again that the strategy of exerting pressure, economic pressure, sanctions pressure on Russia is working. It defies the argument of those who've been yelling on every corner that sanctions do not work. Sanctions always work if you continuously do two things. First, you keep imposing new sanctions, and second, you close loopholes that allow the circumvention of sanctions. If you do either, but not both of them simultaneously, then sanctions begin to dysfunction. So now what we see is that the lesson is clear. Sanctions have to be implemented, sanctions have to be imposed, and circumvention has to be suppressed. But sanctions alone cannot win this war. It has to be a comprehensive strategy involving political pressure, economic pressure, and military pressure. And Ukrainian soldiers and the people of Ukraine will do the rest of the job.
Mr. Kuleba, I will leave it there. I appreciate you making time for the conversation today. Thank you so much.
Thank you.